Let's talk to Harry Cole, political editor at The Sun. Great column this morning, Harry. Very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. How we doing?
No, what a paper today, by the way. He's got this guy on the front page, the man who claims that he's a mate of old 50 Cent's, Bangham Smurf. It's a pretty good, I would say, summation of the problems in this country. A bloke's from Trinidad. He goes to America, gets involved in a shoot-up, gets locked away for 3.5 years, somehow ends up in Stevenage in a Novotel being paid for by you and me.
It's astonishing, isn't it? This is a guy who's in 50 Cent's music videos. 50 Cent himself has commented this morning and said, hang on, I haven't seen this guy for ages. I'm not in a gang, please leave me alone. But yeah, no, astonishing story. I mean, the paper's full of stories that make you want to bang your head against the wall this morning. Not least the 50 Cent story, more boats arriving and it was a sunny weekend, and then you've got Red Ed Miliband, first of all he murdered a bacon sandwich, and now he's a Kuma. I
mean, it's unbelievable, isn't it? 4.5 billion quid worth of business to Britain, these Indian restaurants bring.
I know, and you've ever sat in I'm sure you have, Mike, no offence meant, I'm sure you sat
I certainly have.
And looked at those tandoor ovens. They take a hell of a lot of heat.
Yeah.
To make those delicious meaty plates. But, obviously, as ever, if you try to do that with electricity, imagine trying to barbecue with electric barbecue. You know it's just going to be rubbish in comparison. It's not going to taste the same. I don't care what people say. It's nonsense.
Yeah, but the trouble is they're doing the same...
I had to get off my chest.
Yeah, they're doing the same thing to British steel, though, aren't they? They're taking a blast furnace, which is perfectly good for making the hardest steel that you can make in the world to make battleships and planes, and they're going to turn it into an electric arc oven, which is actually going to be no use to man or beast, and make soft steel, which you can fire a missile through. Exactly,
soft steel and soggy cofters.
Yeah, it's not a good recipe, is it? It has to be said. Let's talk about your column though, because Yvette Cooper was out and about yesterday trying to make sense of what it is they're going to do. But a lot of people saying the problem with Keir Starmer's announcement this morning is it's not going to have a cap on immigration, and all of the promises that he's going to make are going to be quite hard to keep, aren't they?
Yeah, look, I quite enjoyed Yvette Cooper's outing yesterday. She was from pretty fiery form. She basically went against 25 years of Treasury, Tory, Labour, Blairite consensus, that actually this magical myth that basically pulling the immigration lever, bringing in cheap foreign labour will suddenly make the country grow. And on paper, maybe it will. Maybe we'll get slightly artificially high growth figures because you've got lots of more people in the country. But if you look at GDP per capita, if you break that down per head, Britain is stagnating. There's reports out this morning about the complete lack of wage growth in the last 20 years. Well, that's what happens when you bring in 10 million extra workers into the economy. Of course, wages are going to be stagnant when you massively increase the supply of workers. So Yvette Cooper was out there really quite punchy. She's written, as revealed in the paper tomorrow, she's personally written a pretty punchy, fiery foreword to this 69-page white paper we're going to get today, where she basically says this era is over. And it's pretty obvious who she's having a go at there. She's having a go right at Rachel Reeves and the Treasury, and those that have been fighting this white paper, those that want to continue to have high levels of foreign migration late in the labour market. And, this rift is now in public. Now, to put this in a bit of context, we've also got this other battle going on within government at the moment, in the fact that Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves, they're desperate for this big EU reset. They want to go unpick Brexit somewhat to get closer to the European markets, have better trade, frictionless trade, even though we've got a massive trade deal with quota-free, tariff-free trade deal with the EU. They want to go closer back towards the single market. And obviously, in return, what are the EU asking for? Free movement. Now, they're not calling it free movement. They're calling it a youth mobility scheme, which means tens of thousands of under 40s will be able to come and work and study here just as they did before. Now, that may sound all nice on paper, young people going on nice university courses, but you and I both know these schemes are exploited ruthlessly. Look at and we're rubbish at counting who comes. They say, oh, we'll put a cap on it. It'll be okay. We'll keep a close eye on it. It'll only be a small number. We know that's nonsense. Back in the referendum, when they said, there are 3 million Europeans here, that turned out to be nonsense. It was closer to 6 million. That tried to stay after the Leave vote. So be very, very wary when people say, oh, it's a limited, targeted youth mobility scheme for the under 40s. If you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you.
Exactly, because that's the same problem with the trade deal with India, isn't it? Because on the face of it, if you believe everything that you're told, and if you think the moon is made of cheese, you can go, oh yeah, that's great, because it means that companies here can hire Indian workers and they can make more money. But the reality will be that people will set up companies in this country because they've got reciprocity with India, and they'll start hiring people and they'll start bringing people in. It'll be like the kebab shop in the Midlands where the guy brought in, what was it, something like 650 people as skilled workers and got visas for them all because people jacked the system.
He probably needed 650 workers to work out how to cook a kebab without a tandoor oven.
Yeah, true. But you know what I mean? I mean, people make fun. People, basically take the mickey out of the regulations, and unfortunately, the government seems to fall for it every single time.
Well, that's the problem. As the British state are not very good at counting these things. It's quite alarming. Last week we found out there were 15 billion. The cost of asylum hotels was actually 15 billion, not 4.5.
Yeah.
Last year, the ONS, the rubbish ONS, the Office of National Statistics, who apparently have the complete inability to actually count, which should be their one job. They're rubbish. I'm not going to swear. They're rubbish at forecasts, be it growth to migrant numbers, and they found 166,000 extra migrants down the back of the sofa last year.
I know. Incredible.
So the idea that we're going to say, oh, it's only going to be 50,000 or 40,000 here, be very, very wary. And what is the point of all today? Look, Yvette Cooper's making good strides. I think she's, no one ever leaves the Home Office more left-wing than they entered. Let's look at old Robert Jenrick before her. He went on a complete transformation after a few months in that place. It's obviously a basket case. People go in there, they lift up the lid, they see how bad it is, and they come out sounding pretty sound in my view. Now, we should applaud Yvette Cooper for that. Now what she's got to do is convince Keir Starmer, convince Rachel Reeves, convince all the Remainers in her cabinet that are trying to push us back towards the EU, and then get it through all the wokies and hand-wringers on the Labour backbenches.
Yeah, absolutely right. I must draw your attention, well, you already know about it, but I'll draw everybody else's attention to what you've said this morning about Darren Jones, or last night, and his rather ludicrous tweet in which he says this: we may be in an era of five-party politics, but there's only really two sides. Our side, a politics of love, compassion and community with the ideas to transform Britain, and their side, a politics of anger, division and blame, posing only a risk to Britain. I mean, is this guy like 12 or something?
Well, it sounds like, I think I made the point last night, you'd expect better rhetoric at an NUS conference, a student politics to the extreme, that
Seriously.
is. Exactly the problem that Labour has. His intervention, this is the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, the second most important person in the Treasury, on the eve of the government trying to basically tackle reform, prove that they are willing to take the measures needed to get legal migration down, and there he is singing Kumbaya like he's some sort of peacenik hippie. Suggesting that anyone that doesn't agree with Labour is or not on the side of love, and anyone that criticises migration or criticises Labour policy is somehow on the side of hate. This is exactly the sort of rhetoric that led them to get an utter spanking last week at the local elections. Yeah. If they carry on like that, they're going to get more and more kickings every time voters are given a say, because that's sort of divisive politics. Who's the one being divisive?
Exactly.
There? It's Darren Jones.
It's what they did during Brexit. You'd think they'd have learned their lesson from that, but they still haven't,
No, of course they haven't. And and these people are running the country. And you just think, if these people, is this actually what they think? Is there some sort of shadow leadership election going on here? Is he trying to make himself, some sort of contender for the soft left compared to the sort of, Yvette Cooper, who's obviously going to pick up supporters on the right of the Labour Party? I mean, I saw that tweet, and I don't normally. I'm normally a reserved kind of guy. I don't like to put my opinions out there too much, but. I was baffled that he thought that was a good idea on the eve of the Prime Minister trying to show the country that he gets it. And he's basically showing exactly the inner workings of the Treasury group mind think, the brain rot that suffers at the heart of some of these politicians that genuinely think they are morally correct and superior to voters who have concerns about immigration. I think you can see the PM's coming now, so let's see what he has to say.
There he is. Great to see you, Harry. Thanks very much indeed. Great column today. Great paper today.